It's day 5. I actually skipped this weekend, so 2 days have gone by since my last post. So today's day 5. Today I want to talk about boundaries, and specifically, I like to think of it as like the anti-boundary, which is not what you would think of as a boundary. What is commonly referred to as a boundary is like a line that we're telling the outside world, this is your space and this is my space. And we can come together and collaborate, but at the end of the day, like, this is where I will hold my ground. This is where I will draw a limit for you infringing on either my personal space, my emotional space, my mental space, my spiritual space, my verbal space. It's a way that we think to limit interaction or limit someone else's beliefs or values or physical contact from intruding on ours, right? It's where there's a line. Well, the anti-boundary, which I've been thinking a little bit about that I haven't actually been able to name until just now when I turned on the camera, I like the name anti-boundary, is just as important. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I was reminded of something that my mother and I were talking about, and that I used to do a lot of as well. But basically, you can hear a siren outside. Oh well. Basically, when somebody doesn't show up for you how you expected them to, or how they act is incongruent with the way that you are accustomed to them interacting with you, or the way that they have communicated with you is not in alignment with the way that you communicate with them. So there's an imbalance. What I used to do was I used to say to myself, I'm going to be the bigger person, and I'm going to still continue to show up to that relationship in the same way that I always have, just to show them how I want them to interact with me. So here's an example. If, say, you have a friend that you're used to sharing struggles with them, and they come to you and they share their struggle, but when you go to them and you want to share your struggle with them, they say, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that, and I don't want to hear it. And this maybe is a reoccurring thing, that there's an imbalance there. My reaction to that used to have been, oh, well, I'm just going to continue showing up for this relationship because I'm the bigger person. Because maybe one day they'll see how good of a person I was, and then they'll figure out how they should have treated me. This is a very martyr mentality that I developed. And I think this was from my childhood and sort of being trained to do this. The whole thing of turn the other cheek is what I thought I was doing. Like, you're not going to show up for me, but I'm going to keep showing up for you, just so you realize how good of a person I am, and eventually you'll feel bad, and then you'll show up for me how I need you to. This is not how you draw a boundary in your life. And so I've come up with a name, the anti-boundary. And what this means to me is when someone doesn't show up for you how you need them to, and there's an imbalance that is created, and there's a boundary that has been crossed, rather than telling them, you've crossed my boundary, because some situations don't necessarily require you to say, this is my boundary, right? If someone's not showing up for you, you wouldn't necessarily say to them, you're crossing my boundary here by not showing up for me. What an anti-boundary is recognizing this is how someone has showed up for me or not shown up for me. And so rather than exhausting my resources and exhausting my time and energy in trying to prove to them that they should treat me a different way, why don't I refrain from putting the output of energy in that direction and point it towards somebody that is showing up for me? Point it towards somebody that is operating within that boundary system that is laid out, right? Why not put my energy towards the people in my life who respect my time and energy the way that I need it to be respected, rather than wasting my time and energy, or not wasting, but rather than outputting my time and energy in an area just to teach someone a lesson. It is not your job to convince somebody of how to spend their time and energy, right? The only job you have is to make sure you're spending your time and energy in a way that aligns with the love, the respect, the truth, that you are putting out, that you believe that you deserve. So that is what I like to call an anti-boundary. It's basically removing the energy you're putting in saying, here's my boundary, let me show you what it is. You're removing your energy from that person, and you're understanding this is as far as that relationship goes. This is the depth of this relationship. And maybe my energy isn't best spent on that person. So rather than spending time drawing the boundary, you're actually just refocusing your energy. So it's like an anti-boundary. It's saying, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to hold this boundary up with you, and I'm just going to rest knowing that I have other people in my life who will respect me and my time and my energy and my boundaries. That's all I have today. Day 5.